Hey DIYers, Jarrett with Alarm Grid here. Today we're going to be discussing what is in the installer programming on the Honeywell Lyric system. Now there are going to be different menus in the Honeywell Lyric. Basically you're going to go into these menus to make major changes to the system settings or the configurations for the panel. Now if you are trying to access the installer programming, you will need the installer code for the system. Now the installer code, or the default installer code for the Honeywell Lyric, is 4112. Now it is recommended that you don't change the installer code for the system, because if you were to change the installer code and you happen to forget it, or if you were maybe to lose it, then there is no way to re-access the installer programming for the Honeywell Lyric panels. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. Now, if you did want to access the installer programming for the Lyric, you'll follow these steps. So first, you're going to press Security, and then you're going to go into Tools. It is going to bring up a keypad, and this is where you're going to type in the installer code, which is 4112. Now, you don't want to get the installer code mixed up with the master code. Now, the default master code for the Honeywell systems is 1234. Now you can change the master code if you want to. It is normally changed for security purposes, but you definitely want to keep that installer code at the default. You don't want to change that. Now, if you were to go into Tools and you typed in the master code instead of the installer code, it's going to actually take you to the Master Tools menu instead of the installer programming. So to show you the Master Tools menu, what you're going to do is you're going to tap Tools, and you're going to type in the master code, which is 1234, and you're going to see the different options in here. So you'll have users on the top, where if you had family members or anything and you wanted them to be able to have a code to arm and disarm the system, if you had somebody coming over and you wanted to give them a temporary code, that's where you would go into the users. If you wanted to change the master code, you're going to go into this option as well. Then on the bottom you have date and time. Now you are going to see the option for date and time in the installer tools menu as well, but you can change it in the master tools menu too. So to change the date and time, you're just going to go in there. You'll have the month on the top, you'll have the year, and then obviously the big option for choosing the day. So then you're going to have events on the top. Basically, if you wanted to see when the system is being armed or disarmed, or if there were certain faults in the system, or sensors being tripped, you can go in here and check that out. This will also tell you when the programming has been accessed as well. So that's where you would want to go to check all that stuff out. Then you have reminders. So if you wanted to set certain reminders on the system, you'll jump into here, you'll press Add New, and then set up all the settings for that. You have Advanced, where you have system information on the top. This will tell you the firmware version of the alarm system or the Lyric. This will tell you the 6AP version 2, the 5800 RF version number as well. So if you need to check that information out, you just go into there. You have Walk Test. So if you had a program or sensors programmed to the system and you wanted to see if they're all working correctly and stuff, you're just going to go into Walk Test. Then you have Install Cellular Module. So obviously, if you had a cellular module and you needed to install it in the system, instead of powering it down and everything like that, you could just jump into the Master Tools menu and tap that option. You have COM Test. So if you were to go into here, you can test the Ethernet. You can send a cellular message if you want to, or even send an Ethernet message. You've installed backup battery. So obviously if you're installing a backup battery, you're going to jump into here as well. Instead of going through the process of powering it down and everything, you could just go into the Master Tools menu to do so. You have the option to reboot the system if you ever needed to. You have update sensor firmware to update the firmware for the 6 sensors and everything. You have update key fob firmware. So if you had the Honeywell 6 fob, you're going to jump into here to update the firmware for that Honeywell 6 fob. And you have reset home kit at the bottom. So you would go into that option or the Master Tools menu to set up the home kit. Then you have voice command right underneath, where you can set up voice commands with the Lyric. You can tell it to arm and disarm and stuff like that. You have keypad on the top. This shows you the different keypads that you have programmed to the system. The LKP 500s for instance. You have Wi-Fi config at the bottom. So you will see this option in installer tools or in the installer tools menu as well. But it's going to be in a different section of the installer tools menu, and I'll show you that later. But you do have the option to configure the Wi-Fi in the master tools menu. You'll just tap on it, and then you have scan access points. You can manually configure the AP, WPS, and everything like that. So next is you're going to hit the right arrow, and you're going to see slideshow. So if you wanted to set up like a picture slideshow with the Lyric, you could set that up in that menu. And you have Skybell set up. So if you had a Skybell doorbell camera, you're going to want to go in the Master Tools menu and set that up in there. So next, I'm going to show you the Installer Tools menu. So to access the installer programming, you're going to press Tools, and you're going to type in 4112. And then you're going to hit Program on the top left. And it's going to take you to all the different options in the installer programming. So for the first option, you have installer code. So if you were to want to change the installer code, you're going to tap that, and it'll give you the option to change the installer code if you wanted to. Then you have system type on the top right, which you can have it set for the RF jam log and stuff like that, and the RF house code. Then you have the option for date and time. So if you wanted to change the date and time, you just tap on that. You'll see the option to be able to do so. And then you'll see communicator right next to it, which this is the options for to see the communication path or set the communication path, and basically the other communication settings for the Lyric system. Then you have zones where if you were configuring sensors and stuff, and you have to basically program them to specific zones, so you'd go in there to do that. Then you have comm diagnostics, which this is where you can set up the Lyric to the Wi-Fi. You can pull up Wi-Fi information. You can do a test communication for the system. You can see the MAC and address and the CRC for the Lyric. So then you will have keys next, which if you're programming key fobs to the Honeywell Lyric, then you're going to want to go into keys, because these are the specific key zones that is programmed or that are used for the Honeywell Lyric. So you're just going to go in there, and then if you wanted to set up a key fob, then you're going to press add new. So then you have reporter, which if you go in here, this is the option to be able to set the Honeywell Lyric to be able to basically report out to your central station or AlarmNet 360. So if you were to go to report selection, you have all these options. If you go to options, then you have the reports and everything like that. Then you have sounder, where you would go into there, and this is where you can basically set up the burglary settings and the bell timeout settings too. Then you have system settings, where this is where you're going to play with the entry-exit delay if you wanted to, or the entry delay if you wanted to do that. And you can change the options for auto-stay arming, bypassing, and everything in regards to that. Then you're going to hit the down arrow. You're going to see default config, where this is where you can basically completely default the Honeywell Lyric panel. Then you have Z-Wave, where you can just tap on that. You can either enable Z-Wave or disable it. You have the option for temperature if you want to change it to Celsius or Fahrenheit. Then you have reset master code, where if by any chance you didn't have the master code to the system, but you did have the installer code, you could just go into the installer programming and reset the master code. Then you have language, where it's obviously the language for the Honeywell Lyric. and the RF keypad. So if you did want to program keypads or the LKP500 with the Honeywell Lyric, you're going to go into RF keypad. And then 6 programming. So if you had the 6 series sensors, then you're going to go into 6 programming to basically enroll those sensors with the Honeywell Lyric. And that is what's in the installer programming on the Honeywell Lyric panel. If you have any questions about the Honeywell Lyric or alarm systems in general, please contact us at support@alarmgrid.com or go to our website, alarmgrid.com. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. And if you want notifications of future videos, please click the bell icon. This is Jarrett with Alarm Grid. Have yourself a great day.